Now that hurricane season has started, is Palm Beach County ready? Taking a look at how county emergency management prepares for whatever comes our way and where the United Way of Palm Beach County is ready to step in when we need help. Let's go on the record.
From WPBF 25, this is On the Record with Todd McDermott.
Good morning. Joining me today is Mary Blakeney, Director of the Palm Beach County Office of Emergency Management. In a calm moment right now, Mary, we're glad you're here. Hurricane preparedness, obviously at the county level, of the utmost importance, and I know that it is a year-round job to be ready for this long 6-month season. But why don't we talk first about what happened June 1st, this big exercise you went through. Tell people what it is and what you did.
So on June 1st, we actually held a simulated hurricane event. We simulated Hurricane Lisa making landfall as a Category 4 hurricane right into Palm Beach County. So we had all of our EOC responders in the EOC for the day. We had approximately 125 people during that day going through a series of scenarios, all the way from establishing our shelter locations to points of distribution. And we actually responded to what would be simulated real life situations.
Before you get to that point, how long does it take to actually put this together and actually make the model for what you're going to go through? And I'm also assuming that people go through it have no idea what you're going to do exactly.
Yeah, no, we had an exercise design team that probably worked on it for about 4 months, I would say, designing every scenario, every question, every inject. And then our team at the Office of Emergency Management really began pushing out the information to our partners the Wednesday before. So we wanted it to feel very realistic for our partners and our staff to be ready for the start of hurricane season. So on May 27th, we started pushing out products and information to our partners.
What are those? Stop there and tell me when you push out your product, what are you talking about?
So when we have EOC stakeholders and people that actually have seats in the EOC, from our nonprofit to our governmental agencies to our municipal partners, we started pushing out information about the path and the scenario that was coming towards us. So this Hurricane Lisa was coming directly aiming for Palm Beach County. So we started talking about the timing of when we would open shelters, when we would activate the EOC. We started giving them communication on all of our actions we were taking at the EOC in preparation for our June 1st exercise.
So this closely mimics what you would do in a real scenario. Absolutely. Now, how do you decide what scenario, and do you change it in the middle? I'm really interested in what this exercise is like, because again, you want to keep people on their toes by making sure that it's not what we did last year. It's got to be something new, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of our plans, right? We're working all year long to update our policies, procedures, and our plans. So we were testing all of those pieces along the way. So it's really important for your viewers and your individuals that watch to understand that we have a lot of our planning done year-round, so that way when, regardless of the hazard, whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, a wildfire, we're following those processes. So our timeline with a hurricane really starts about 120 hours out. And when I say 120 hours out, we consider hour 0 when tropical storm force winds begin to impact our county. Okay. So our timeline starts backwards from there, where we really start our preparedness actions to being able to stand up and operate the Emergency Operations Center.
Good 5-day ramp up to all this.
Absolutely.
What does this do for your personnel to go through this? How does it affect how they perform when the real thing is here?
Yeah, you know, just like a lot of people in the workplace, you have people that are very seasoned, that have been with you for years, and then you have new people, right? You have new people that maybe have joined your team that came from somewhere else, or that might have just graduated college, that are very young and seasoned and green, I would like to say. So there's a lot of excitement and anticipation, but there's also a little bit of fear they don't know what to expect. So the reason we do these exercises and all this training is to alleviate that stress, get people comfortable. I always like to tell people we want to go back to the fundamentals. It's just like sports, right? Know the basic fundamentals of baseball, of football, whatever the sport is. You get that basic foundation, and the rest of it is seamless. You know, it's repetitive, and it's just understanding the basics and being able to build from there, because we never know what's going to impact us.
Right.
And Hurricane Milton was a perfect example of that.
I was just going to ask about that, because that was a situation where I think a lot of us learned a lot about what can happen, because we hadn't dealt with such destructive and unfortunately deadly tornadoes spawned by a hurricane in all these years. Tornadoes are something different for us here in this part of Florida. But how did this impact your people, and how does it impact going forward now after going through that?
You know, there's a lot of things. You know, we at Emergency Management always talk about the hazards that could impact us. But sometimes the viewers don't know that. So working with your station, even your meteorologists, you know, we're going back to the basics and educating people and dissecting what are the hazards within a hurricane. And we're also doing that for our responders and our stakeholders, right? It's not just the hurricane force winds, it's the rainfall flooding, it's the storm surge, it's the heavy winds, but it's also the tornadic activity that are a part of those hurricanes. So it's really getting our individuals to understand that, from the viewers to our responders, to know that we might need to pivot at any moment. And that's why it's so important at our Emergency Operations Center to know that we have the right people in the room at the right time when we need them. And that's why our first responders, our governmental agencies, our nonprofit partners, our faith-based partners, we're all a team and able to respond on the response side, but also be ready for the recovery side of it.
I'm going to take an extra 30 seconds here and let you, if you would, what your primary message is to people as we are now in the season. We're not at the peak, obviously, but what do you want people out there to know? You know,
people, individuals, your viewers need to understand what the risks are to them at their home and their workplace, and be prepared for that. We have a simple 4-step plan. Make a plan, build a kit, get involved, and be informed. Being informed is listening to you, getting involved, get involved with a nonprofit, a faith-based organization. They are all a huge part of our preparedness, response, and recovery in the county. Making that disaster kit for your home and your workplace, and building that plan and communicating that with your family. You need to get everybody involved in your preparedness measures.
I can't thank you enough for coming today, but also for the work you and your team does during storm season. We really appreciate it. Mary Blakeney, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we have much more to come. Next, look at the United Way. It's ready to help for whatever comes our way. That's when On the Record returns.
You're watching On the Record on WPBF 25.
Welcome back. We say hello now to Donna Pulda, the Vice President of Special Initiatives for United Way of Palm Beach County. Your staff took part in that big June 1 exercise, and I think it's important for people to know you're the lead nonprofit agency in all this. What's it like to be part of an exercise like that?
Yeah, it was really beneficial to be a part of that exercise, because we haven't been activated to the Emergency Operations Center in quite a while. So we were able to refresh our skills on the web EOC system that the Office of Emergency Management uses, and put those skills to test at the exercise.
Of course, we don't really want you to be activated, but when there is an activation, it's really important, the United Way, to get involved. You do so much. Give people an idea, an inside look at what happens at the United Way when that activation occurs for an emergency.
Okay, so if the Office of Emergency Management lets us know that parts of the county or the entire county has had devastation, they'll put us into action. So we'll open up what's called a volunteer reception center. And so that's where people who want to volunteer that aren't already associated with a disaster relief organization will come, so they can get registered, they can get interviewed, so they can get sent out into the community with a volunteer opportunity. They get briefly trained in safety, but it's kind of common sense things like don't step in standing water, stay hydrated, things like that. They get an ID so that it has their name, the date, and where they're being assigned in the community.
And goodness, don't step on any cable or wire that's down. It's something they tell reporters right away, and hopefully they remember it. I'm also wondering about the various aspects of, like, for instance, and we're actually watching, I believe those are kits being put together. Tell me about the disaster kits that you put in, the storm kits. What's in them, and how long does a work like this take? I assume this is not something you do in that 5-day window. This is something that goes on for a while.
Yeah, so we do provide disaster kits to low to moderate income households in the county because some are struggling just to put food on the table. So they don't have extra funds to prepare and get a kit together. So we provide the kits that'll have things like flashlights and batteries, a waterproof, fireproof container for their documents, for insurance things and things like that that they need to have on hand. It's got whistles, ponchos, automatic can, not an automatic can opener, but a manual can opener, so they're able to open things if they don't have electricity, so things like that.
Can we talk more about the volunteers for a moment?
Sure.
You said people who may already be connected to a relief organization like United Way. So before a storm, how many people are we talking about in, say, Palm Beach County that might have a connection with you and be ready to help?
Yeah, so typically we'll see hundreds of volunteers that want to come out and help. So we actually just sent an email out to volunteers that have helped in the past with disasters and who've signed up on our website in the last 6 to 12 months to make sure that they're still available, they're still interested, and that we have all the correct information. So if something does happen, we're able to just shoot that email out, say we need you, come report, we need help in the community to clean up this disaster.
And now I was going to ask about cleanup, storm damage and recovery efforts. Do you play a role in that as well?
Yeah, we can. So, we'll get requests from some of our nonprofit partner agencies. And so if trees have fallen in front of their building, in front of their parking lot, we can send volunteers out there to help remove that so that they can open their business and, help people recover. We send people to, if the county opens up what's called the pods, the points of distribution, we'll send volunteers there to help hand out the water, ice, meals ready to eat, whatever it is. So yeah, we can send volunteers pretty much where there's a need.
Mary talked a little bit about the communication with nonprofits and other agencies connected to emergency management. What's that communication like in those days leading up to when we hope that a storm will miss us, but we're looking at it as a possibility? What's that communication like, that flow back and forth?
Yeah, so if something, we get word that something's headed our way, like I said, we'll reach out to the volunteers, and so it is a lot of back and forth. Can you help? Where can you help? When are you available? And then when we do deploy out, we need to make sure we're tracking that, so we're, staying in constant touch with the volunteers, with where they're being sent. So it is a lot of coordination, and our phones will be ringing off the hook.
I'm sure.
So we do have volunteers and some of our United Way staff that will be assigned to answer the phones so that we can direct people where they need to go.
All right, this is your chance now. You talked about the volunteers you already have that you've emailed. What if somebody out there who sees this says, I would like to be part of this. I would like to volunteer if I can. How do they go about doing that and being part of it all?
Yeah, so they can go to the United Way website, unitedwaypbc.org, and we do have a link on there if you're interested in becoming a disaster volunteer, so they can click on that and sign up, and I'll get their information and I'll reach out to them.
Well, we're so glad you joined us today, and we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
And I don't really want to hear from you during storm season, but I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. On the
Yes,
record,
we'll be reaching.
Yes, I know you will. But we're okay. On the record, we'll be right back in a moment. Welcome back. Dr. Lori George joins me now, President and CEO of United Way of Palm Beach County. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll say it again, but thank you for what you do.
My pleasure.
Why is it so important for United Way to be part of emergency response? Why is it so important to the organization?
Well, here's a fun fact. We were created in 1929. when the storms hit the Glades. And so we were there right from the beginning. We've almost been around 100 years at United Way of Palm Beach County, which is pretty awesome.
Yes.
But it's because there's a need in the community. And when our neighbors need help, we wrap around in a coordinated way and we help.
You know, it's interesting. Do you ever get people who are surprised by all that you do when it comes to storm preparation and response? I mean, I don't think everybody realizes the big role United Way actually plays.
Yeah, I would agree with you. One of the pillars is community resiliency, is what we call it. So it's not just storms, but it's any type of man-made disaster, that type of thing. We get activated. We serve the role that we already talked about at the Emergency Operations Center. We are in charge of volunteers and donations and making sure that our nonprofits are also safe and in position to provide services that are critical.
Tell me about, because we touched on the preparedness kits, the disaster kits, tell me about what it's like to see the volunteers organize and see them go through the process, because it is so important. It is so, if you will, it is so United Way to see people do that.
Way. Yeah, I love it so much because we actually get a lot of community volunteers and corporations that package these items, and then they know where they're going to be delivered. And they're typically like Adoptive Family, Salvation Army, local nonprofits that can give these packages to people who need it most. It's very rewarding.
I do want to ask also about the ethos, and you just touched on it a little bit, but the ethos, bringing people together to solve community challenges. This so seems to apply to storm response United Way. It really fits together.
It does. And one of the things that year-round that we focus on too is hunger and food security. And you might not realize it, but for you and I, when somebody, when you're told, get a box of food, make sure you have food and water, those types of supplies, in addition to your disaster kit, you might not have the money to go out and buy those things.
Yeah, that's asking a lot for a lot of families.
It's asking a lot. And so one thing that we really encourage is to go to the Food Finder map, and you can start preparing early and go to these pantries, and you can find the information on the United Way website, go into the Food Finder map, and find out what's close to you, what are the eligibility criteria, and pick up those canned foods now so that you have them in that emergency time.
What else do you want people, this is a very open-ended question, but what else do you want people to know about United Way when it comes to storm season? I'm sure there are other aspects of what you do that you want people to know about.
I do, and so there is the preparation, then there is the storm. The recovery doesn't just happen in a week or 2 weeks. The recovery is called long-term recovery. We stay with the families and the nonprofits years, because it takes time to work through all that red tape and make sure they're stabilized. And so we are part of a long-term recovery coalition because it takes multiple years to help the community get back on their feet, depending on what the issue is.
I think it's really important for people to know that, 5 days after a storm, you have storm damage or worse, somebody is still going to be there.
Absolutely. We consider ourselves a bit of the insurance policy to help out people who are in need.
Give people an idea of how many people you're talking about, not how many people you help, but how many people connected to the United Way are out there being part of all this, because I think it's hard to necessarily imagine all it would take in a county our size with our population.
It really depends on the size of the disaster, is what I would say. Sometimes it could be a couple hundred volunteers. When you count the preparation, the engagement, and the post, it could be 1,000 volunteers. It just depends on the scope and scale of the disaster.
Can you characterize the importance of your connection with emergency management for the county? It is such a symbiotic relationship, but it's very important.
It is. So the county is really, they organize it all. And you heard they have the first responders, they have the nonprofits, medical professionals, all of the above. And they've been such an amazing trusted partner for us year round for any health and human service issue that we just really appreciate the relationship with them and that they entrust us to manage and quarterback the volunteer role and the monetary donations.
Well, everybody appreciates what you do. A final thought for people going into, now that we are in storm season, if you have anything else you want to add, you can.
You're not alone. You are not alone. Make sure that you know that. It can be very scary when you have a storm. Make sure that you know you can call 211, which is an information hotline, to figure out if you need something. Please reach out. You're not alone. We're here for you.
All right, Dr. Lori George with United Way of Palm Beach County, thank you so much.
Thank you.
On the record, we'll be right back. I want to thank you, as always, for making this part of your morning, and we encourage you to be part of our discussion each and every Sunday. We're always right here at 10 a.m. Until the next time, you can watch this morning's On the Record episode and every episode on our website. That's WPBF.com and on our free WPBF 25 News app. We all hope you have a wonderful Sunday. We'll see you again next week.